you said pimp your Christmas angels, but I wasn't sure. So, episode 275 with Mr. Ed Morales and my cousin Chris Collier. But Ed was just telling us that he's going to pimp his Christmas angel. So that is where this discussion is going today. But so I don't leave him out, Mr. Morales, this is my cousin Chris. Chris, this is Mr. Morales. And Chris is a massive fan of yours. I was telling him about he watched the episode and we were at Thanksgiving. He's, dude, Ed Morales is one of my heroes. I have read about that so much. And I was like, he and I are talking again December 6th. And he was like, dude, you got to tell me when. And I was like, do you want to join? And he was like, no fucking way.
That's great. Hey, Chris, where are you located, Chris?
I'm in the People's Republic of New Jersey.
Oh my God, man! You need to escape, just like East Germany.
I know.
I know.
Right? I'm
I know.
Yeah, Chris.
My fiance and I are we're just close to our parents here, and
okay. Well, that makes a big difference.
Yeah,
makes a big difference
here.
Yeah, it's
stuck here for right now.
You guys can all go to the same gulag together because that's
I know.
Did you see in England today? They today, December 6th, 2020, today in England, they said that they're lifting quarantine restrictions on, quote, high-value people. So people that are deemed worthy no longer have to quarantine themselves, and they can go travel. So is this not just the Soviet Union?
Wow.
You can travel freely if you are high enough up in the Politburo?
I had not heard that.
Yeah, as of today. So if you are elite, I mean, which is really weird because Valenti Beryov, the head of the KGB and the Soviet nuclear program, whenever the nuclear scientists would make a big advancement to lead to the first A-bomb for the Soviets, they would get a bunch of stuff, but they would also get free passage to different parts of the Soviet Union.
Wow.
That is now a reality. It is slowly creeping in.
Yeah.
But Chris, you were telling me why it was and Chris, proud owner of a 357, was explaining why it was so important, why Mr. Morales' the shootout in Miami was so important and how it changed everything. And it seems that you actually know a lot more about this than I do, Chris. So why don't you take it away?
All right. Well, so first I just need to gush for a second. So I'm kind of like a caliber nerd. I don't work in the gun industry or anything. Maybe in the future I'd love to, but I love just reading about calibers and performance and stuff like that. And so I've, for like 5 years, been pretty much obsessed with reading about the Miami shootout. I read about it many, many times, and I had no idea until I saw the link for Tom's podcast, and I was just like, I was so glued in to listening to you talk about it. That was incredible. And I've read it. And not only were you in it, but you're the guy who finished it. So I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So
he is the finisher. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, I mean, I don't know and I do need to apologize because when I talked to Tom on Thanksgiving, I said, I'm going to read the book, but I do manage a retail store. And so this is my first day off since Thanksgiving. So I did not get a chance to read the book between Thanksgiving and today.
Oh, well then the podcast is over. It's over.
I apologize, but I will read the book. But, yeah, so it seems like that shootout kind of it temporarily ended the 9mm in the bureau, but they just recently brought it back, I guess, because of modern.
That's correct. Well, you know what though? At the time, it effectively killed it. I mean, everybody thought it was tombstone. End of story. But that just goes to show you how engineering can change things around, because it's not so much the 9mm that was the problem, it was the caliber. The 9mm caliber, not the caliber, the actual bullet that they were using in the 9mm, they were using 115 grain silver tip hollow point, which at the time, I mean, I didn't carry one, but all the SWAT guys told me that was like the creme de la creme. So it wasn't the platform, it was the actual ballistic side of it. And the engineering has caught up over the years. Now they've got this, honestly, I'm so far out of the loop, on nines, that I'm told that it's a bonded round. And I honestly don't know what that means, but I'm told that it is equivalent to a .40 caliber or even a 45 in its performance. So, just to be, as accurate as possible, it was the caliber, not the actual platform, the pistol. But I mean, I haven't even had a chance to fire any 9mm bonded rounds. But my son, who's a deputy sheriff here in the county, said that his department went to the new bonded rounds. They switched out about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, from the 40 calibers over to the Glock, the Glock 9mm. So they're all carrying the new bonded ammunition. So I mean, you wait 40 years or 35 years and you reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I read was that not the gentleman, I shouldn't say the gentleman, the criminal, the murderer who had the one that had the what?
Platt Maddox.
Yeah, the one that had the Mini 14.
Platt.
Yeah, so he got shot from somebody, and the way that he got shot, that was, even if he got shot on the operating table, he would have died.
That's correct.
But because of the circumstances, he was still able to do so much damage.
Correct. That is all correct. Here, hold on for 1 second. Let me grab something here.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, I've got my little stick here. He was shot, so that you can see,
Like right here.
he was shot through the arm in this fashion.
Okay.
He was moving, and the round penetrated his arm, severed the brachial artery, and penetrated his chest, and traversed across his chest from the right side, and stopped right about here, which is about an inch from the heart. Okay, so I mean, that was I tell people, I said, Jerry Dove, when he fired that round, he was shooting at a moving target. That was $1 million shot, because of his window of opportunity was probably about 3 feet, from when Platt exposed himself until Platt, got behind cover. 3 feet, that's not very much space. And Jerry Dove was firing from a distance of about 14 yards. You think about it, shooting at a moving target at 14 yards, where your window is 3 feet. Man, that's a fantastic, and he made a center mass hit. The agent Jerry performed, admirably. The 9mm pistol performed admirably. The failure was the round, okay, the ballistics. Conversely, okay, which is, I spoke to Tom last time, about the psychology of survival. Law enforcement really never really addressed the psychological side of survival. Everybody always addressed tactics, positions, like all the cool stuff, but nobody ever really looked into the cerebral side of survival. And that has been studied so much in the last 30 years that now people, I'm amazed at how much of a grasp of survival people have. And I'm really, especially law enforcement and agents. The will to survive is something that nobody can give you. Tom can't give it to you. You can't give it to me, and so on. Okay, it has to come from the individual person. Okay, and that's where the case study about the shootout, took a different perspective. There was tactics, there was ballistics, car stops, all the arm, weapons and so on. But what? We actually started looking into the psychology of survival. Platt was 101st Airborne, and so was his partner Maddox. Okay, great training. Okay, so you get mindset with good training and the will to survive. That's what kept this crazy person, Platt, working, because
it was unreal.
That hit. I mean, on 98%, 99% of the human population, that hit would have just stopped you. Maybe not instantaneously, but after you realize, hey, I've been shot through the lung, and I'm having difficulty breathing and I'm bleeding out, maybe I should stop and get some medical aid. This guy went from the point where Jerry shot him, we estimate he went an additional 3 minutes to maybe 3.5 minutes of where he functioned and continued to fight and fight and fight and fight. Okay, so that was like when it was finally studied and analyzed, a lot of people couldn't believe it. And you know what, though? Anybody who's been involved in an actual life and death scenario, in a survival scenario, knows, hey, you know what? If you put your mind to something, you know, it's like, hey, people say, I'm going to fight you until my last breath. That was Platt. Okay, he fought until his last breath. Okay, and I attribute that to 101st Airborne, his personality, and training. You know, so it's like my personality is probably a lot like Platt's. You know, I'm kind of to put a fine point on it, I'm kind of an asshole. You know, so maybe not that much, but you know, I'm a hard person. You know, I'm a focused person. I had Marine Corps training, and you know, I did a lot of training with the FBI too. I mean, I've had training all throughout my young career, my early years. But you know what? You never really know what you're going to do until you're actually faced with it. You know, and that's what happened with Platt. You know, his mindset. Okay, people couldn't believe it, and it was all mindset.
Do we know what went wrong? And Tom, if I'm talking too much, just tell me to shut up.
No.
Yeah. Do we know what went wrong? How two guys that were in the military ended up being such hardened criminals?
You know what, though? That's a good question, and I've been asked that question before. And who's to say? I mean, who's to say you and Tom, you know, you guys could have grown up to be the next generation's Platt and Maddox? I mean, what kept you from being that? Okay, what kept you from taking, you know, going to the dark side as opposed to staying on the side of light, you know, and
right.
righteousness and rule of law? Who knows? I mean, was it strictly personality, or was it economics? Was it need? Was it an issue of, you know, I need a thrill?
Right.
Who's to know? I mean, honestly, but based on our studies and our investigation, they were doing it for economic purposes. They wanted money. It's that simple. Yeah. You know, the old, who was it? Derringer in the 40s. Was, I forget his name, Tom Derringer or something like that? The old gangster.
John Derringer.
John Derringer, yeah. So a reporter asked him, he says, why do you rob banks? You know what his answer was? He said, because that's where the money is. Okay. And these guys were the same way. Why did they rob banks? Because that's where the money was, you know. So it was strictly economics. I shouldn't say strictly, but mostly economics. However, interviewing their girlfriends, going, you know, trying to reconstruct their life, going back, you know, we found out when they enlisted in the military and so on and so forth. They did a thorough background on them as much as possible. But they found out that they, who knows how or why, but they had a history, according to their girlfriends, of going out at night, even when they were in the military, dressing up in dark clothing and ski hats and stuff, going out at night and carousing around, you know, and it
wow.
I forget, one of the girlfriends said, found out, or one of the two told her that they would go out and rob drug dealers. Okay, wherever they were, you know, they would kind of drive around looking for the seedy part of town, you know, and the girlfriend said that they would rob drug dealers. Now, what a perfect victim. You know, as a drug dealer's not going to call 911 and say, hey, officer, these two bad guys robbed me of my cocaine. You know, can you help me out? So, you know, the same thing it happened in Miami when I was there. There were people that went, you know, good guys, bad guys, that went around wherever they could find them and tried to rob drug dealers. Yeah. I mean, that's a high risk profession, because drug dealers are usually pretty well armed, you know. Yeah. So most of them are. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows what caused these two guys to turn to the dark side? I mean, you know, it's all personality. Maybe it's environment. Maybe it was economics. Who knows? I really don't know. But needless to say that our paths crossed on April 11th.
Yeah. And do you think, and this is all, I guess, speculation, maybe it's not, maybe you know the answer, is you say economics, do you mean that they were hurting? They got a kid on the way, they got whatever, they got bill XYZ, or it was just like they wanted money, just like,
Well, I mean,
live big.
Tom, you've just described me. I mean, what you just said applies to all of us.
Yeah.
Okay, except most of us, 90% of us, 95% of us, get a job, get an education.
Oh, I'm not defending them. I'm not.
No. I'm just saying, why would someone choose that path as opposed to, stay in school,
I mean,
have a good career, have a good life, get a job, and move up in the world. Okay. Some people just want to do it the easy way. They want to take shortcuts, or they're lazy, or who knows why. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but why do people turn to crime? Maybe they get a thrill. Maybe they're sadistic, or who knows, but these two guys, when their cover work, their employment, they both worked at the Yankee Clippers lawn service. Okay, from all intents and purposes, investigations showed that they never did any yard work, because doing yard work in South Florida in the summer is freaking back-breaking, dirty work, And you never saw these guys, riding one of those, lawnmowers around, the yards and stuff. It was just a cover. So they were just looking for easy money, and of course they each had their homes. And according to what the neighbors said after the shooting, when the investigators came by to ask, they always bought their kids the latest toys, the little, the big dude, whatever was in fashion in the mid 80s. They always seemed to be going on vacation to Disney World, in Orlando. So, they were trying to live, a lifestyle beyond their means. And the only way they could pay for it is to rob banks or rob drug dealers.
Yeah. I've thought about that before, even before I ever read about Platinmatics, like it, it's like that describes everyone, right? You got a kid on the way, you got health insurance, and it's like not everyone goes and robs people. Some of us just get a job, and it sucks, but you get the job. But
that's it.
Yeah, I've thought about it, and again, not defending them, but more so trying to rationalize. Like, I don't defend Hitler, but I know why he did what he did. And it's because he was a psychopath and hated Jews. That doesn't defend it, but I understand why.
Right.
So to understand why Platinmatics did what they did. It'd be like if you're Michael Jordan and you're working at a summer camp and you're selling ice cream, but meanwhile, on the courts at night are illegal games where they're playing $5, whoever wins a game of 21. At a certain point, you're like, I'm better than these little shits.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at drug dealers, robbing drug dealers, not even banks. Let's just stick with drug dealers. You're these hard guys in these seedy parts of town, but you're trained in the 101st. What part of you is like, yo, let's go whip some ass? Like,
exactly.
It's
exactly. And you know what? Based on their history, based on their performance, between August of 1985 and April 1986, and based on their history, when according to their girlfriends, they were not afraid to take deadly force action. They were not afraid. It's like, hey, if you got their way, too bad, so sad. If you ended up, getting killed, that was on you. Okay, not on them.
Yeah.
It seems almost like it's the worst possible situation that could have happened, because you have two guys who are clearly like sociopaths, who don't really care, who are in it for the thrill, who want money, and then they got the training behind it. It's like all the bad things came together.
Yeah.
Correct. And then, Chris, and then on top of that, as you and I discussed earlier, whoops, did I lose? Okay. You and I discussed earlier, you add everything you just said, and then on top of that, you add a strong will to survive. I mean, that is the perfect storm. I mean, and we met the perfect storm, and then, on April 11th, because, all the training and his commitment and stuff. And you know what? He fought until his last breath, kind of like, you hate to use the old saying, hey, they'll never take me alive,
Right. I have two more questions, if you guys don't mind, about the specific.
No, Chris.
Okay.
Well,
There's
can I
no.
answer your ballistics question well enough?
Yeah, absolutely. But I have one more ballistics question. So
Okay.
I've read in two different places that the 357 that you carried, that was your own personal gun.
Correct.
Okay. I read in one spot that it had 38 shells in it, and then I read somewhere else that it had 357 shells in it. What's the truth?
The truth is 38.
What now? Why? That seems crazy.
Okay. See, that's an interesting question. And if you're not inside the agency, you wouldn't know that. It's like, why wouldn't you carry 357s?
Right.
And
If you shot them next to each other, it's a night and day difference.
The answer is regulations.
What?
Yep. Regulations. And you know what? I'm a balls to the wall type of guy. I've been known to skirt some regulations here and there, but nobody wants to get fired. Okay.
Right.
For having violating people say, well, why weren't you carrying a different weapon? Dude, if I carry a 44 Magnum, my own, okay, and I shoot and kill somebody, guess who's going to jail? Guess who's going to get fired? I'm going to go get fired, and I'm going to be liable, because that is a non-authorized weapon. You cannot carry non-authorized equipment or ammunition. So
that seems.
You could have a 357 Magnum, but you had to carry 38 caliber bullets in the weapon. You could only have 357 Magnum rounds as reloads. As you know, if you fired your first 6, then you probably needed a 357 Magnum round. So the theory was that, hey, when you go through your first 6 rounds, then you can start loading Magnums.
What a stupid fucking rule.
Yeah, that seems like bureaucratic.
How about I just let me shoot the person and not need to go through 6
right
rounds? Exactly. That sounds like something from an ivory tower of, well, our models show if you go through 6, chances are you're in a life or death situation. Fuck that. Give me a Desert Eagle with a black tip round.
Well, you know what though? Exactly. These are regulations and rules and stuff that are being made by people who don't know. It's kind of like in today's environment. You've got politicians telling police officers,
shoot him in the leg.
Shoot them in the head.
Shoot them in the leg.
Guys, they don't know how hard it is to shoot somebody. Shoot somebody and something that's about 3 or 4 inches wide. Are you kidding me? He's moving. Or
the whole life or death, like you talk. Sorry to interrupt you, but in your book you talk about and the book will be linked in this top comment and description for anyone that wants to read it. Plug for Mr. Morales. But you even talk about in the writing of your book how it's you're not just going through like a shootout. You're explaining something that sounds like a heavy LSD trip in terms of time dilation and images and like
exactly
the shutter effect, and it's like.
Exactly. See, these rules are made by naive politicians or naive administrators. It's like in today's environment, politicians are telling police officers, well, you can't use excessive force. I said, dude, if someone is coming at me with a pipe in my book, in my school, that is deadly force.
Yeah.
Okay, if you come at me with a pipe, I'm not going to let you hit me. But now politicians want the bad guys to make the first overt act. And that's like if I block with my arm, okay, they have to break my arm or hit me across the head before I can respond with deadly force. I say, hey, excuse me, screw you. You know what? If you even look at me sideways with a pipe in your hand and you take 1 step towards me, I am going to interpret that as a hostile, deadly force intent act. And I am going to use deadly force in retaliation in response. Okay. Now, a lot of these politicians are saying, "Oh no, police officers, you can't do this." It's like, you know what? Politicians do not dictate deadly force policy, deadly force law. The Supreme Court of the United States has determined what deadly force policy is. Okay. A politician can say, "Hey, don't use deadly force against a citizen," but you know what? A politician can kiss my ass because the deadly policy has been dictated and it's gone up to the Supreme Court numerous times and they've upheld it. Okay, simple. If you feel that someone is going to cause serious bodily harm or kill you, you can defend your life with equal deadly force. Okay, simple.
Yeah. it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, right?
Well, you shouldn't even have to ask for forgiveness. You know, if the law, if the Supreme Court law, you know, dictates, hey, you can defend yourself, you know, in a deadly force situation. I don't have to ask for forgiveness. I know what the law is. Okay, it's kind of like those officers in Atlanta. Okay, there's a big hullabaloo about that. You know, that blah. You know, that politicians can say what they want, but those officers, especially the one who shot, was perfectly within the bounds of Supreme Court deadly force policy.
Are you talking about the one in the one who fell asleep in his car in the parking lot?
The McDonald's incident
with the taser. Yeah. That's okay. Unbelievable to me.
But see, that falls perfect. That falls exactly within the deadly force policy. Okay, you know, if your reaction is in 1/10 of a second. That incident happened in as fast as I just moved my hand. Boom. Okay, that's how fast it happened. But of course, hindsight and the cell phone cameras that we have now, you can go frame by frame by frame, and you can criticize all you want.
Yeah.
Okay. But the situation didn't happen frame by frame by frame. It happened in 1/10 of a second or 2/10 of a second.
Yeah.
And that officer had to respond, you know, with his training and what he observed. Okay. So it doesn't really matter what the mayor of Atlanta says. Okay. What matters is what the Supreme Court has ruled. Okay. What deadly force is. He's perfectly within the deadly force guidelines. Okay. So, you know, a lot of these, like going back to the 357, okay, that regulation was made by someone who didn't know. Okay, in my opinion, it's probably someone who didn't know. Now, on the flip side, and I'm playing the devil's advocate. The problem with the 357 round is, as all three of us probably know, that's a hot round. Okay, that thing's got some zip behind it. So the concern, and I know what the concern is. I mean, the concern is always, it doesn't matter whether you're using a 22 pistol, 22 rifle, or a 44 Magnum. The concern is what happens when that round hits the subject and it keeps going, or what happens if the round misses the subject and keeps going. Okay, so there is that aspect of it.
Gotcha.
So I mean, you know, you have to have a balance. Okay. Maybe naivety played a part of it, but, you know, concern for safety, public safety, you know, also plays a part, you know, in that. So you kind of have to balance the two, you know, as far as, you know, the 38 357 Magnum question.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you answered that, because I've, like, every time I read about guns or I shoot mine, that question literally comes into my head. Why did that happen, and what is the truth? So I feel like part of my life is just answered right there with that question.
Well, good.
What, Ms. Morales, if I can ask a question, if there's, so you couldn't carry a 44, so let's just say, like, you just decide, screw it. Let's say in hindsight, you knew the Platinumatics thing was coming, or whatever, just somehow you know it, in some weird divine way. What weapon are you carrying around? Just regardless if you get fired or not. If you could just have, I mean, and not like a minigun, but I mean, like, if you could bring anything, what would it be? Just,
well, you know what? Though,
yeah.
I fired a 44, and you know what? That's a man's gun. Okay. Okay, so I know I wouldn't carry a 44. I mean, I'm not Dirty Harry like the old Clint Eastwood in the movies and stuff. I don't know how the hell he fired that gun. You know, I don't think he was firing 44 loads. You know, but that's another story. But I would probably, you know, in hindsight being 2020, I would probably have carried 357 Magnums in my 357 Magnum pistol, revolver. Okay. So that would be one change. And then the other change is, you know, if everything was perfect hindsight, I would switch my double-aught buck shotgun rounds for rifle slugs.
Oh,
so that would have made a whole bunch of difference, I think. You know, but you know, again, hindsight's 2020. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you still ended the fight and you made it out of there a hero.
Yeah.
So it's not all bad, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good day. You know.
Do you think? Well, actually, let me ask you one question first. Do you ever get tired of talking about the shootout, like 34 years later?
Honesty. I used to talk about it a lot more in the 80s because it had just happened, and we had prepared the training video, and I was at the training academy, so they wanted me to pass my knowledge on, my experience on to New Ages training, to New Age trainees. So I talked about it way more back then, and over the course of the years, it's kind of tapered off to a point where when I retired in 2004, I mean, nobody was even asking me. And then after I retired, I went through a period of about 10 years where no one asked me about it. I don't wear a patch on my shoulder saying, "Hey, I'm the FBI Miami shootout guy," So
Yeah.
I did try to be as anonymous as possible, but
Gotcha.
I would get calls periodically from different agencies, to go to a conference and stuff like that, maybe once a year, twice a year. But then when I ended up working as a contractor in Iraq and Central America, that was 6 years where I had no contact with anybody. I was just training,
Gotcha.
police, stuff. So in a long roundabout answer to your question is no, because I'm not asked about it that much. It's kind of peaked up again, perked up or picked up because when I wrote the book, I had to put a lot of thought process into it to reconstruct the actual incident.
Right.
So in that regard, I have thought about it. And you know what? In a way, if I think back on it, I'm sorry if this answer is long.
No, it's okay.
In 88, 89, it was therapeutic because I'm still suffering from PTSD, and it was good to talk about it, because the more I talked about it, the more insight I got, because I didn't know. I only during the actual shootout, I only saw a little narrow, sliver of the pie. And that was my portion and what I did. Okay, it wasn't until we prepared the training video that I actually learned what all the other actions were. The actions from the other agents and the actions by the bad guys. So because of the training video, I got a real good idea of what happened. And based on that, I did more research to a point where I think I have a pretty good handle on what happened. I'm about 90%. I know what happened up to about 95%. Okay. And the other 5%, we don't know because we have 4 participants that are dead. Okay. The 2 bad guys and the 2 agents, Ben Grogan, Jerry Dove died. So we really can't ask them. Not really. We can't ask them what their actions were, what they saw, and so on and so forth. So we've had to reconstruct their actions based on eyewitnesses and on evidence. So that's why I say I have about 95% of the picture. The other 5%, maybe 8%, nobody will ever know because 4 witnesses are dead.
Yeah. Could you, Chris, unless you have any, were you about to say something?
I had one more question.
Yeah, good to go for it. Chris, ask.
And then, I have one more question about the shootout, and then before the podcast is over, I have a general question.
Chris, I gave an hour as a loose estimate. We can go for as long as we want, as long as Morales can, and you can ask as many questions as you want.
Well,
there's no, just let it go.
I respect everybody's time, so I just wanted to put it out there.
Don't be such a bitch. Just ask your question.
Mr. Morales,
Tom, you were right. He is a bitch.
Yeah, I know, right?
he warned me, Chris. He warned me.
I warned him. I said, "Hey, man, you gotta."
I'm joking. Don't come get me.
No, believe me,
Mr. Morales. Nobody can come get you. You're an animal.
What would you say, Mr. Morales, the main area of opportunity for the Bureau was looking back on the shootout? Is it like tactics or mindset? Because I've watched, there's like some recreation videos of it, which are horrible. Like if you read about it and then you watch, like, I don't know if you've seen any of those like recreation videos, they're really bad. They're so
yeah,
bad.
I know. I think I've seen almost all of them. Okay. And, and even when they interviewed me, okay, I was interviewed for at least half of those videos that have been on TV. And they still screwed it up. It's like, dudes, what the hell? I mean, it's just incredible. And the made-for-TV movie, that was a total poot screw. Okay? The movie was about 50% accurate.
Wow, that's
Okay,
bad.
you know, I mean, they got so many. You know, a lot of it was fluff. You know, they had to make up some stuff. You know, to fill in. You know, the lives of people, my life and Ben Grogan and Jerry Doves and so on and so forth. Okay, but for them to get the shootout wrong, that was just unbelievable. The shootout part of it is like 50% incorrect. I mean,
Wow.
don't get me wrong. It's an exciting movie. I mean, everyone that I've ever talked to said, "Man, that's a good shootout." They said, "Yeah, you know what? But except it's 50% wrong." You know, I mean, I know I'm probably one of 8 people who know that it's 50% wrong. The rest of the public thinks, "Hey, man, that's what happened," you know, and it's not, you know. So that part of it, you know, I just said, you know, there's a lot of misinformation out there, which was another catalyst for me to write the book, because there was
Right.
information out there. But I don't understand the point of your question. What when you say what opportunity was there for the FBI? What do you mean?
So, like, if you look back on it, like, do you think it was like all just like wrong place, wrong time, wrong bad guys? Do you think that like that the fact that you had an inferior bullet is how it was so bad, or was it just bad? Like, do you think that the FBI, like, did the FBI learn anything from it?
Oh my God, Chris, we learned tons.
Yeah. So, like,
Tons, you know,
what
you
would
know,
you say the biggest takeaway is?
and that's a good phrase. Takeaways. The takeaways. I'll
Yeah.
get to it in a minute. But the thing is, you know, it wasn't wrong place, wrong time. It was right place, right time. Okay,
Oh,
because I feel we were fated, because we were after these guys hard. Okay, between August of '85 and April, you know, we were dogging these guys. Okay, and we were getting closer and closer. It wasn't until March that we actually found, you know, we had a live witness that, you know, he survived getting shot and robbed by these 2 guys in the Everglades. His name was Jose Calazo. That was the first actual live witness that had a face-to-face confrontation with them, and he was able to provide a lot of information. So we were getting closer. If it hadn't been April, it would have been May. And if it hadn't been May, it would have been June, because we were getting closer and closer to them. And so that's that part of it. Now, the other part of it, the takeaways. Oh my God! I mean, that's why my book is called FBI Miami Firefight: 5 minutes that changed the bureau. Okay,
gotcha. Okay.
changed the whole FBI, and it changed law enforcement in general. Okay, we started looking at ballistics. Okay, that one round that should have stopped, or if not killed, Platt outright, caused the whole change in ballistics. Okay, that's what led to the development of the 40 caliber round. Okay, and the development of the 149 grain subsonic 9mm round. Okay, that was almost like 33% heavier than the 115 grain, or maybe 25% heavier. Okay, I mean, big changes there. And then we changed weapons platforms. You know, the FBI went from revolvers to pistols. You know, the FBI in particular, and law enforcement in general, was always concerned that semi-automatic pistols would malfunction. Okay, and I don't know what the history was, because I really hadn't studied it, but there were so many horror stories of guys carrying pistols, and when it came time to use them, you know, in a sudden event, like a sudden confrontation, that the pistol fired the first round, but it failed to cycle, it failed to extract, or failed to load, or whatever. So there were so many horror stories out there, but, you know, I don't know whether that was a problem with the weapon at the time, with the ammunition at the time, or with the maintenance, you know, by the officer.
Right.
So, I mean, there's so many different factors that we will never know. But now, in today's environment, people know that you have to maintain your pistols, because it's an actual moving machine. I mean, it's not a Swiss watch a car engine, but it does have moving parts when you need it, so you do have to maintain it, so that changed. We changed ballistics, we changed weapons platforms, we changed training, because when I went through firearms training, and this is no slap or a finger in your eye to anybody, okay, but the mentality of training back then was, they were trying to teach you marksmanship, which is always a good thing. That's the bottom line, or that should be the first step in training people how to shoot. The basic fundamentals of marksmanship, okay? And then when you get that, when you establish a base level of understanding and training, then you can start putting all the razzle dazzle on top of that. The fancy, shooting, shooting pennies out of the air or whatever training people have. In other words, we call that going from marksmanship to combat training. We called it combat training. You actually started shooting in real world environments. You shot at multiple targets. You shot at moving targets. You shot at partially obscured, targets. Instead of shooting at a full silhouette, you would shoot at just an exposed head and shoulder.
Gotcha.
You shot from inside a car. You shot, while running, and then you'd have to stop, go to a certain position and shoot from there. Or they would stress you out. You do a bunch of push-ups, and then they'd say, okay, run behind that mailbox and address the target. Okay, so that's combat shooting. Okay, but when I went through, the way I remember it, and my mind is fuzzy. I am close to 60. I'm 60. I'll be 68 next year.
Nonsense.
But is that law enforcement was shooting for administrative purposes. Okay.
Gotcha.
Let me define that. Okay, you have basic marksmanship training, the basic platform, the very basic base of training, and then they started, doing the other combat shooting. So this is just a wild estimate on my part, but at the time that I went through, we did about 80 or 90% shooting in lines. Okay, just going, through the marksmanship training, and 10% combat shooting. Okay, and the reason law enforcement agencies have to shoot in lines is because they have to be able to defend you in court, saying, okay, Chris is a 7-year veteran, and we have 7 years of statistical records for his firearms training. He is, on average, over the course of 7 years, his average in firearms training is 87%. So he is 80% accurate, or he has an 87% hit rate on a target. Okay,
Gotcha.
That is for administrative purposes, and that's for legal purposes.
Okay.
Okay. Unfortunately, back in the day, that's all. That was the majority of the shooting. Shooting in straight lines. After the Miami shooting incident, they still taught basic marksmanship, and they still tried to establish a record for your percentage, your ability to shoot. But they increased the combat training up to like 40%, or maybe
That
even
seems way more logical.
40% combat training. Okay, shooting at moving targets, moving and shooting from inside a car, shooting into a car. We have some wrecked cars back then. You would shoot at a target inside a car. We would shoot in and around cars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we would shoot weapons, shotguns from inside a car, MP5 machine guns from inside a car. So everything became a lot more dynamic. Okay, we weren't SWAT members, but we weren't shooting in straight lines anymore. So that was a huge change, because people found out, hey, you know what? I can become a robot. I can shoot in a straight line. Because I know the course.
Mm-hmm.
I know the distance from here to there is 25 yards, and I know where I have to aim. But you take them out of that straight line shooting and put them into a real dynamic situation. Okay, you're in this car, dude. When the buzzer goes off, you have to undo your seatbelt, pop the door open, get out of the car, go behind the engine block, and address that target. or those 2 targets or 5 targets, okay, and you have to reload, when you need. Okay, it's a hot line. Okay, what they call a hot line. If you run out of ammo, you reload like you were on the street. So that stress, that change, getting people out of straight lines, that stress, would really show you what the shooter was capable of. And it was good because it opened individuals' eyes and it opened the agency's eyes. It's like, wow, we need more training in the combat training. So that was great. Okay. The other changes were, as I said, was the weapons changes. The FBI, excuse me, as an agency, got more long weapons. They purchased either a shotgun or a semi-automatic MP5. Okay, they purchased enough weapons that every 2 FBI agents, because usually FBI agents travel in pairs, so, it's a partner. Every 2 FBI agents would have access to an MP5 or a shotgun, always in a car. Okay, so I don't know how many hundreds of weapons they went out and bought, but I don't know if you're familiar with the H&K. Those are not cheap guns. Those are guns.
I shot one in October. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom has more experience with those.
I shot a silenced one. It was awesome.
So, but those things are German. It's Germans. They're German made. And they're not cheap. So the FBI went out and bought. I think they bought like 600. Okay.
Wow.
Or I don't even know. Because there's 10,000 agents out there. They bought a whole bunch of MP5s, and I'm sure H&K was happier than what, man. So, and then of course, then we went to the Remington 12 gauge shotguns, which they also bought several hundred shotguns. So increased firepower, increased ballistics, increased training, and then they actually started looking into as I mentioned earlier, Chris, is the psychological side.
Right.
It's like, I would come in and say, hey, listen, I was shot twice, with a rifle. I survived. Gordon McNeil was shot 2 times with a rifle. He survived. He by far was far worse injured than I was. John Hanlon, excuse me. John Hanlon was shot once. He was shot 3 times with a rifle. He was shot in the hand and the legs, okay, and he survived. And conversely, Platt, the guy who did all the damage, he had 12 wounds on his body from a combination of shotgun pellets, 9mm rounds, and 38 rounds. Okay, and his partner Maddox had 6 hits. Okay, he by far had the worst hit. He had 4 to the face, 1 to the neck, and 1 to his arm. Okay, but the point there was that, hey, the guy who was shot to pieces, Platt, was shot 12 times. He kept fighting. He had the mindset, 101st, can do, or whatever they go, whatever
Yeah.
the army says. He had that attitude. It's like, hey, you know what? I am not going to stop. I am going to try to persevere. And you know what? He fought till his last breath. So it was Chris. It was a watershed event. It just changed.
Right.
Tremendously, hugely. So.
Do
that answers your question.
You answered it perfectly. And obviously I knew that there was takeaways. I just kind of wanted to hear you, lay them out like that, which you did absolutely perfectly. And I find it weird, so kind of surprising that the Bureau did so much of that, like inline shooting before that. But I guess it makes sense. But like, I find that kind of shocking. And I guess it was
but you know what though? See, that's what a lot of people don't understand or don't know. Not that you don't understand. That was a different era. Okay,
right.
That was the era before drugs. Before drug dealers and Mac 10s and
right.
47s.
Yeah,
that was.
that was your small town cop. That was your Norman Rockwell police officer. How do you
exactly.
do?
You know what though? I think the throwback from now, the closest thing that we could come to what the way things are now is going back to the gangster era, where you had the Tommy guns. I would hate Can you imagine going up against somebody with a 50-round Tommy gun? He would light you up, man. It's like, oh my, I mean, they didn't call it a trench gun for nothing. I mean, it's a World War I trench gun. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
45s, I think it shot too, right?
Yes, all ball ammo, man. That thing will go straight through, a tree, So I think back in the 30s, that was the gangster era, the Tommy guns and the whippet guns, the old bar, where Bonnie and Clyde sawed down their bar.
Yeah.
Their 30-06,
Yeah.
semi-automatic rifle, so and now, when we got into it, people, the drug dealers, criminals were starting to come up with the AKs, and the Mac 10s and the Mac 11s, that type of stuff, so, but law enforcement, again, it was more a basic training in marksmanship and then administrative. Okay, we have to show that Tom, he may be a good investigator, but he's a piss poor shot. He only averages 71% on the range.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas Chris averages 87%. So they have to be able to defend that in court in case you get into a situation, so they have to have.
Have you, actually, Chris, ask a question real quick because I have to go to the bathroom and be right back. I've got a question.
I have an unrelated question to the shootout that I would like your opinion on.
No, go ahead.
So, and I know you guys kind of got a little bit into politics on the last podcast, but I've been thinking about this for a while, and it's bothering me, and I want a real veteran's opinion on it. Obviously, I'm super pro police. I took the police test a few years ago. If I could live, I'm 35. I have a career already. I have a house. If I could live my life over again and start at 18, I would have tried to become a police officer at that age. And I got a 98.6 on the test, but I think I'm just too old to become an officer. So I just want to put that out there first. But it seems like right now, law enforcement is kind of in a tough situation because it seems like they never really have the support of, I don't want to say the left, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Not necessarily the left, but they never really had the support of the left. And they always kind of had the support of the right. But now it seems like between a combination of, in certain areas, like what I would call revenue law enforcement, where like you'll have a broken taillight out and then they'll bust you with 5 more tickets. Or like, I remember one time when I was really young, I got a ticket for not stopping properly and I got nailed with a bunch of surcharges, whatever. Between that and between certain people, not all of them, thankfully, because there's a lot of sheriffs that are not enforcing, but the lockdowns, law enforcement that are enforcing the lockdowns that a lot of people deem unconstitutional. It seems like law enforcement's kind of in a tough place, and I just wanted your opinion on that because, it's weird and it's not good. And as somebody who is a wholehearted law enforcement supporter, it makes me kind of upset because, like, you see what I'm saying?
I think I understand what you're saying, but you know what though? Let me give you a historical standpoint. I mean, from my perspective, even back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, okay, it almost didn't matter whether you were, as you said, left or right, okay?
Right.
Most citizens were, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but I'll use the word leery. Most citizens were leery of law enforcement. Okay?
Really?
Because they're the enforcers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, that's why they call them law enforcement. They were the enforcers. Okay, and the idea of an enforcer is to be impartial. Okay, and that's the way it should be. Okay. You should be an impartial enforcer, and same thing with the law. It should be impartial. But don't get me wrong. I mean, there were people out there that were wholehearted supporters of law enforcement, and there were people out there that were totally against law enforcement. But overall, the general consensus, I don't know if I can use the word consensus, but the general attitude was like, oh my God, there's a cop. Even if you weren't doing anything wrong, and even if you were a good citizen, it's like, oh my God, there's a cop. Just walk straight, don't look around, that type of stuff. And if you were a criminal, forget it. Oh my God, there's a cop, run or whatever, so, but I guess it was a certain amount of respect, whether it was respect out of fear or respect out of just respect, but nowadays, I mean, there's a total disrespect, a complete breakdown.
It's maddening to watch.
I think it's a breakdown in our society.
Hey, Chris, can you put in headphones? I'm getting feedback through your phone.
Yeah.
It's just making weird noises. But sorry, Mr. Morales, go on.
No, should I wait or can I go?
No, you're good.
No, I'm good. I can hear you.
No. The thing is, nowadays, I mean, it's gone way overboard. Now you have an open hatred, an open defiance of law enforcement, and you know what? And that goes right back. I put that I put it in the lap of politicians, okay? Because you never used to tolerate, rioters, getting in officers' faces. Okay, I tell you what, you do that in Europe, you do that in Latin America, you're going to get your butt whipped. Okay, getting into an officer's face like that and yelling at him, guess what? You're going to get a fist to the face or a belly club across the shoulder. Period. In the story. There is no need for that. Okay. People say, well, they have a freedom of speech. Yeah, you know what? You can have your freedom of speech all you want, but don't get an inch from my face and yell at my face. Okay. That's called encroachment. Okay. And I don't know why more departments don't enforce that. When I guarantee you, if you did that to any of those lily-livered politicians, okay, if you got within an inch of their face and started yelling at them, I guarantee you, they would back away or they would react in some way to push you or they would call security.
Yeah.
Okay. But yet they don't want law enforcement officers to respond to that. They say, hey, it's perfectly legal. It's freedom of speech. But if you did it to them, they would be crying like little baby bitches. Yeah. I guarantee you.
Well, okay. I think maybe what they need, you're right. It's the same thing with like actors going to, and Chris, sorry, I muted your phone because you were getting feedback. So I'll now you're asked to unmute. Chris, I think, there you go. Are you back?
How dare you? Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
am I good?
Just getting feedback through your phone. But yeah, it's like you always see at like the Golden Globes or Emmys or whatever the hell it is. They'll come on and they'll just be on the red carpet and they're like, and let's all, take a moment to ask for gun control because we need a safer society. And if you look off into the periphery, you can still see them on the TV cameras. You'll see some guys that don't really look like they belong there, and they're in suits with square jaws, and they've got MP5s. And it's like, who are those guys? And well, they're protecting us from who?
Right.
From crazy people. Well, can I get some of that protection too? No.
You're
PR.
not worthy. You're not worthy.
No, go back to the factory. Work harder. It's.
But you know what though? Let me add this, okay? And I probably shouldn't. I'm probably going to get myself in trouble. But you see all these different areas around the country that I forget what was the one in Minneapolis or the one in Seattle where they made the no police zones.
Chaz.
Was it Chaz or Jazz?
That was in Chaz. That was in Seattle, or was it Portland?
Can you imagine? And it's my understanding that crime in Minnesota has gone up like 100% or 150%. Can you imagine if law enforcement, excuse me, if law enforcement were to disappear tomorrow? Can you imagine what would happen?
I kind of think that needs to happen because they've been
calling. Well, you know what though? In a way, I kind of wish it would happen
so do I.
To Seattle and to Minneapolis, and then they would really see if you it's like you said earlier, Tom, if you give these politicians a taste of their own medicine and take away their security, okay, and let them run around like regular citizens without any security details, then they would start seeing the world for what it really was, okay? Because then they're susceptible to the same muggings or shenanigans that people play, getting in your face or pushing you, or you trying to have a meal and somebody comes into a restaurant, starts throwing crap around and ruining your meal, threatening you and so on and so forth, okay? In a certain way, I kind of wish they would go all out, say, hey, we're abolishing police. Okay, can you imagine what would happen to cities like that? They would burn down within a week. Okay,
I think
I think we've all seen the movie The Purge, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. that's what would happen. You would have people that would have to arm themselves to defend themselves against other predators. It's like, gee whiz, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, Chris, getting back to your question, society has changed. Okay, when I came in, people had a healthy respect, whether it was a healthy respect out of like respect or a little bit of intimidation or fear, but people had a respect for that officer, patrolling in his patrol car or on the beat. Now, our politicians and our media, an officer, I mean, he's like a marked man or a marked woman. They're walking around with targets on their back, and if they do anything to defend themselves, they will be labeled the bad guys. And I think that's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah.
Ludicrous.
I think they need to, because they're all calling for this. It's kind of like the girlfriend or the wife that keeps threatening to leave versus the one that finally packs her bag and takes the kids. Like, either she's good and she leaves, or the husband's like, oh man, I really am a piece of shit, and he changes, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. We can keep calling for law enforcement to be defunded. Fuck it. Take them out. Just take them out entirely, watch the city burn, and live stream it from a bunch of drones and helicopters. I mean, just put in the news choppers or shit that we use to watch like football. Put it on pay-per-view. Put it on YouTube for free. Watch the city burn, and then be like, who's next? I mean, fuck, those who suffer remember.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what though? It's been said in the media. The first function of a government or a city council or a state government or national government is to secure the public safety, to secure the people. Okay, either domestically or from foreign, from foreign actors. Okay, that's the basic fundamental job of the government, and then everything else comes on top of that. Okay, you gotta pave the streets, you gotta pick up the garbage, you gotta deliver the mail, you gotta make sure people are secure in their businesses and their homes. It's like, that's normal, but the first one is people have got to be secure in their homes and in their businesses. Okay, you have to provide the security for the general public, not just for yourself, but for the general public. And I think, the way our society is going now, it's like, it's like I see all these politicians on TV, especially the federal ones, they're okay, man. I mean, they're getting paid, in the pandemic, they're not losing their pay, and they get security. So, man, life is good for them.
Yeah.
The rest of us, deplorables have to fight.
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter to them. They're getting money. They still have their Secret Service. They have everything.
Yeah.
To them, it's all just like, hey, it's virtue signal. It's bargaining chips. They don't.
Exactly.
They don't give a shit what happens outside of the castle. But
rules for thee and not for me.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Anyway, Chris, I hope that answers your question. I know I rambled on a lot, but
no. It totally did. It totally did.
I was gonna say, let's we a little past an hour and the audio's kind of fucking up, so let's wrap this one up. But Chris, you're gonna read the book, and then we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this again in January, and Chris is gonna come prepared.
Sounds good.
Does that sound good?
Great.
Totally.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Morales. Thank you, Chris. Chris,
thank you both so much. This was a dream come true.
Yeah, Chris, I'll see you in like 2 weeks. But Mr. Morales, Merry Christmas, and I'll send you an email, and let's set one up in January, and we can do us three again, and we can bullshit again.
Okay, Tom, thank you. And Chris, it was nice meeting you. And you're not even a tenth as bad as Tom made you sound.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Well, now Ed's putting words in my mouth, so I'm coming for you. All right. But
okay, guys. Hey, again, Merry Christmas to you guys. If I don't see you, and Happy New Year. Okay.
You too, sir.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You guys be safe. Okay.
All right, my guy.
Bye-bye.